Welcome into the Bobcast for the week of February 5th. I'm Dan Wallace, and I'm joined first this week by men's head basketball coach Webb Hatch. Coach, a good week for your boys once again. You go 1-1, both games on the road after what's been your longest and toughest road trip of the entire season. 3 straight games on the road. Let's start with that game at Penn State Harrisburg. A 78-72 victory over Penn State, and it was a close game, closer than you would have liked, but you come away with a W at the end, and that's all that matters when you're dealing with a long road trip without having any games at home.
Uh, Penn State's better than their record. I think they're 6-13 overall, and only won a couple of games in conference. But in watching tape and looking at their record, they've been in a ton of ball games, and it seems a pattern for them is they either go in at halftime up 8 or 10 points, or they play very well the first half, and then they have a stretch sometime during the second half where they don't score, and that's when teams get back in it, and that's kind of what happened with us up there. Coach Friday does a good job, and I know they're just kind of snake bit, and I've been there and done that, and had teams exactly like that. So we felt like we were lucky to get out of there with a win. We shot the ball fairly well, almost 42%, but we shot it extremely well from the three-point range, 44%. So it was a good win, and we were happy to get it. And then we went over to Salisbury on Saturday and came up a little bit short there.
Lawrence Pettis Jr., 21 points in that Penn State-Harrisburg game. Daniel Alexander, 14. A very balanced output, again, for your boys. Let's go to the Salisbury game now, and it was a little bit of a different story, a 77-70 loss in what is an extremely difficult road trip, one of your longest road trips to drive down to Salisbury. Lawrence Pettis Jr. with 24 points in that game, along with Tyler Michael with 17. Your only scorers in double figures on the afternoon. Actually make it Edwin Cole 13 as well. What are the difficulties that go along with traveling down for a game against your arch rival? It's a long distance trip. It's an overnight trip. What are the differences? How much more difficult is that for a game to go down and have to stay overnight than a game where you're just traveling and you're coming back the same day?
I mean, it's a long trip. It's almost 5 hours. We got there between 10 and 10:30 on Friday night. Hotel accommodations were fine. We got checked in pretty quick, but it's still, it's not like playing at home. And like you said, they're our arch rival. We didn't shoot the ball well, and we only had 3 kids in double figures, which is not bad. But it's tough. Their defense is what keeps them in ball games, and we had 20 turnovers. When we had played them here in early January, we had 28 turnovers. So we did make an improvement, but 20 is too many, and we talked about that. And we said we need to keep the turnovers to around 15. And the game was I think 73-70, very, very late, and we had a chance to cut it to 1. And we've had about 4 games this year where we've had a shot inside the last 2 minutes where we've been down 1 or 2 or 3 or maybe even being tied. And about 4 of those games, the shot hasn't fallen, and we've gotten the exact shot we wanted. And on this one, I think Lawrence got all the way to the rim and had a layup, and it sat up there on the rim and fell off, and that would have cut it to 1. And then we had to foul them, and they made some free throws down the stretch. So, obviously it was closer than the game when we played them here, but the goal was to win the ball game, and we came up short in that regard. I was extremely proud of the way we competed. And I told the guys in the locker room after the game, I said, you have nothing to be ashamed of. I love coaching you guys, and we competed our butts off. We turned it over too much, and we had a couple of players that didn't shoot the ball well, and that's the difference in winning and losing the ball game. And the rebounds were almost even. The out rebound is 34-31. We shot the ball extremely well from the free throw line. We shot 86%, which maybe the best we've shot from free throw line all year, and we shot fairly well on 3-pointers, 9 for 24, 38%. But we missed a few open shots that were certainly makeable, and the 20 turnovers is what really hurt us.
Before this 3-game road trip, you had 3 games at home in a row: Southern Virginia, Christopher Newport, and York. Your team did very well, winning 2 of the 3 of those. You also win 2 out of the 3 on this big road trip. What is your longest road trip within the conference season? When you look back on it, 3 games in a row on the road, you take 2 out of 3. You beat the teams that, based on the standings, you should beat.
Right.
You've got to be happy with the road trip.
Yeah. It seems like we've been on the road for a month, even though it was only 3 games. Since the first of the year, we haven't lost a game on Wednesday night. And St. Mary's, we finally got a Saturday win. So we haven't lost 2 in a row since 2017. Now we got 4 games left. We got Mary Washington at home on Wednesday. Then we go to Marymount Saturday, which will be a day trip. Then we go to Southern Virginia next Wednesday, and then we finish out the regular season with Wesley at home on Senior Day. So we got a lot to play for. We'd obviously like to win all 4, but the most important one right now is Mary Washington at home. We're in 5th place in the conference right now, as you know. I think there's 3 teams tied for second, and York, unless they stumble, is going to stay in first. I don't see them losing maybe more than 1 game the rest of the year, and they may not lose any. So we've got a chance to finish anywhere between tied for second and 6th or 7th. So the number one objective right now is to beat Mary Washington, because that's a team that's slightly in front of us, and if we can them, then we've beaten them twice, and then if you look at tiebreaker scenarios, that works in our favor because we'll have 2 wins over them. So they're playing very, very well right now, and we'll have to be ready on Wednesday night.
Speaking of those standings, the full standings right now, York is in first at 12-2. Then you have Christopher Newport, Mary Washington, and Salisbury all at 10-4, tied for second. Your team sits in 5th right now at 8-6, and then you have Wesley and Marymount right behind at 6-8. Being at this point in the season, being 14 games into the conference season, with only 4 games left, you're sitting in that 5th place spot. Are you happy with where your team is currently sitting?
Yes and no. I mean, 5th is better than 8th. The Christopher Newport game here, we certainly could have gotten that one. And Salisbury this past Saturday, that was certainly a winnable game for us as well. Had we gotten those 2, we'd be 10-4 right now, and CNU would be 9-5, and Salisbury would be 9-5. Shoulda, coulda, woulda. I'm pleased, because we've got a very realistic chance of making the playoffs, and then I think, the playoffs, it's going to be wide open this year. Obviously, if you can finish 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or 4th, you get to host a game, and that's huge on Tuesday night to not have to go on the road. So that's our ultimate goal, is to try to finish in 3rd or 4th place. But we want to make the playoffs, because we haven't made the playoffs the last 4 years, so that's our number one objective.
Well, in terms of getting to host one of those playoff games, this game on Wednesday would go a long way in helping with that. You do host Mary Washington on Wednesday night, a team that you already beat this season down at Mary Washington. A second win would give you the full tiebreaker over Mary Wash. Do you put any more emphasis on this game than others, knowing that you can have the full tiebreaker? And what do you have to do to come away with the win against Mary Wash to try to help your cause for getting that home playoff game?
I don't think you put any more emphasis on all the games that are left on our schedule are important, and our guys know that. The key to our win down there is we play pretty good defense, and Mary Washington, who normally shoots the 3 very, very well, did not shoot the 3 well when we played them down there a few weeks ago. Now, you'd like to think that we had a little something to do with that, but sometimes teams just don't shoot well. So the question is, can we get out and guard their 3-point shooters again the way we did down there, and can we also shoot the ball well here? It's our gym, so you think you're going to have a decent night shooting. But again, we go down there and it's in their gym and they have a terrible night shooting. So that's going to be huge on whether we get out and go and defend their 3-point shooters, because they've got a bunch of kids that can flat fill it up.
The second game this week, Saturday night, will be Marymount, another team that you did already beat. You have to go down to Arlington, Virginia, which, by the way, the scores of those first two games, Mary Washington, a 68-63 win for your squad, and a win over Marymount here at Bobcat Arena, 67-60. So now you go back on the road against Marymount. It was a very tough game here the first time you played them. Do you expect anything different down at Marymount when you go into their gym, and how do you come away with a crucial road win against a team that is chasing just behind you in the standings?
They just beat Christopher Newport on Saturday at CNU. I think Marymount hit a 3-pointer at the buzzer to win the ball game. They were down, I believe, 2. Like to go for a 3 and go for the win. So they're playing fairly well. Coach Rogers really likes to control tempo, and they would prefer to have games in the 50s or low 60s. They run a lot of time off the clock every time they have the ball. We would prefer to get up and down the floor because we're at our best in the open floor. And in a perfect scenario, we want to get 70 to 75 shots a night. So if we can force tempo, which we did here, and speed the game up a little bit, then we've got a pretty good shot at them. But it'll be a really, really, really tough ball game because it's very meaningful for both of us.
With one game left against a team that you lost to this year in Wesley later on in the season, if you're able to beat Wesley during the last game of the season, you would have beaten 8 out of the 9 teams, 8 out of the 9 opponents in the Capital Athletic Conference. This year it's very balanced in the CAC. What does that say about the depth of this conference and how difficult it is, not just to make the playoffs, but to make a run in the CAC?
It's a tough league. Ward Lambert was at the game Saturday at Salisbury. He coached at Salisbury for 25, 30 years. I coached against him years ago when I was at Marymount. He's retired and still lives in the area. And we chatted for a few minutes. He said, man, this is a brutal conference. And I went, it really is. I've got another friend, Paige Moyer, who coached at Roanoke for years in the ODAC. And he's a dear friend, follows us on live stream a lot when we're playing, and he's going, man, your conference is so tough. And even though nobody's totally dominating in conference by being undefeated this year, I don't think the conference is down. I guess in the national perspective they may look at it and say that. But I think the conference is overall from top to bottom is as good as it's been in the time that we've been in it. And if your kids don't play hard every night, they're in trouble. And if you as a coach don't have them prepared and don't do your homework, you're in trouble. So, anybody can beat anybody in our league. We're pleased at where we are, but we got 4 left and we need to take care of business.
Well, Coach, 2 more tough ones coming up this week, Mary Washington and Marymount. Hopefully 2 wins, and best of luck to you in the 2 matchups.
Thanks.
I'm joined now on the Bobcast by head track and field coach Dale Louie. And Coach, let's start with this. You were kind of split this week. You went to Susquehanna with one team, Ursinus with another team. What was the rationale and the thinking behind splitting it up and doing 2 separate meets with 2 separate groups of athletes in the same weekend?
2 factors primarily. The first was limitations, event limitations at the Susquehanna meet. And that always hurts our efforts in the throws area in particular. Field events are limited. So that was one reason. So we sent primarily some throwers down to Ursinus. The primary motivation originally going to Ursinus is to allow Brad Forrester to compete in the pentathlon at that Ursinus meet. It's the only place that we're able to get him into a multi-event.
Let's start now with the men's side of things from this weekend, and the one athlete I really want to focus on the men's side is John Kearns again, really, because he is kind of just blossomed into this phenomenal athlete for you, replacing some of the throwers that you lost from a year ago, hitting his 4th straight ECAC qualifying mark at Susquehanna this season, and I have to think going into the CAC championships here in 2 weeks, the expectations for him now, not just from you, but from what other athletes are going to have to hit from other schools, it's got to be pretty high.
Yeah, you're right. That puts some pressure on him. So, with all athletes, that's going to be a question mark. How do they respond to that pressure? In his case, a little new experience, a little higher up on a performance list. So, there are people going to be gunning for him, so to speak, and so he'll have to handle that. He's had some good competition up to this point in time, so that should be a plus in helping prepare him for that CAC championship.
In the other field events, Christian Healy also hit a nice mark in the triple jump. It seems like this season, maybe more than others, you have a very good chance to take a lot of points at the Capital Athletic Conference in the field events.
Well, I kind of disagree with you.
All right, there you go.
I think we're probably weaker in the field events than we have. When you look at all the field events, the jumps as well as the throws, we're very much a work in progress on the men's throwing side. Despite John, we've got some people who are coming along and hopefully can squeeze into getting into the finals. In the jumps area, we're a little thinner. We still have quality there in the horizontal jumps with Christian you mentioned, and in the long jump there with Kevon and Adams and Shamar Nelson. All 3 of those guys are capable of busting off some pretty big jumps. They haven't done it yet so far, so hopefully conference is when they unload.
Another athlete that had a nice day at Susquehanna on Saturday, Robbie Romano, just narrowly missing out on an ECAC qualifying mark, and probably the best time for him to do this. He seems like he's starting to really come into form as you're heading into the CAC championships.
He is, and what we did on Saturday event-wise with him is to prepare him for the CAC. That was the primary focus there. We lightened up his load a little bit. He's been racing. We don't want him to race too much. So even though we have a little less than 2 weeks to get ready for CACs, we still didn't want to over-race him based on what he's been doing. Robbie's probably the first guy to tell you that he's not a half-miler, but he needs that turnover, as all distance runners do at some point in time.
Now on the women's side, another nice day for, of course, Kayla Truesdale. It seems like every time you go to an event, she is coming away with 1, 2, maybe even 3 victories. If you throw in a relay or 2 there, she hits 2 more wins again this week for the 3rd meet in this winter season. I don't think enough can be said about what she's done for you as an athlete here. And again, coming up in 2 weeks, looking most likely, Kayla, to take a CAC crown.
Well, she's on the path. She did have a very nice weekend here. I know she wasn't real happy probably with her. She's not happy with her time. She'd like to be faster no matter what. So, and that's a good thing. That's a competitiveness and a desire to be good, which a coach needs from an athlete for them to get better. And she has that. But she did have a good meet. She's got a lot of competition at CACs this year. To defend her crown, she's going to have to work at it. But that's a good thing because ultimately the goal is NCAAs. That's where we want to get her again. We'd like to get her an All-American title before she graduates here. And it's really the only thing she hasn't quite yet captured. And she's getting there. Technically, there are some things we need to work on, and that's our focus for this week with her.
it seemed like this week the real success for the women's side came in the track events. Destiny Logan, she had herself a nice day again, a runner-up finish in the 200-meter, and it seems to me, too, like she has a very good chance to place well this year at the CACs with the development you've seen out of her.
Absolutely. I mean, she's been a solid, runner for us for 4 years. Had some injury issues of various kinds in the 4 years she's been here. She just seems to be extremely focused, numbers oriented. She knows what she wants to try to accomplish. We've said to her all along that we really need her to be running not behind Kayla, but hopefully side by side with her in some of the events, and it's been really gratifying to see how well she's running as a senior.
Well, and it's got to be nice to be able to team them up as well. The team of Truesdale, Logan, sophomore Kayleen Estrada, and Madison Watson. They won the 4x4 this week, and they also hit an ECAC qualifying mark, so they'll be headed to the ECAC championships as a team. It's got to be nice to know that you have, especially those two athletes with Truesdale and Logan, you can match them up with pretty much anybody, and you have a chance of winning.
And that's true, and I'd mentioned two other women who've run on that 4x4 this year, who have run some split times comparable to what was run on Saturday, and that would be Michaela Garrison, who is a middle distance runner for us primarily, and then Gabby Reason is another sprinter who had a really nice day in a 60 there. So we have some interchangeable parts, and down the road that's going to be a plus for us. One of the things we've already talked about is running some relays at some of these championships, ECACs in particular, without maybe Kayla Truesdale.
Now, the CACs are coming up in 2 weeks here. You get a nice week off this week after going hard for 3 or 4 weeks in a row. Do you kind of let up on your athletes a little bit, give them a little bit of time to kind of cool down, relax, recuperate, and then get back at it again next week? Or how do you handle the preparation for the CACs?
Today they have regeneration, and after that we're back to the
grind.
With our weather situation and everything, we're kind of like stop and go a little bit with our training. So when we have windows of opportunity to work hard, we have to seize those periods of time, and that's what we have here. This week in particular. The following week will be a little bit of a short week with the conference meet this year starting on Friday, and us having to do some traveling on Thursday. So this is a really, really important week, and the challenge for us as coaches this week is to get these people to understand that this is not a week off.
Mm-hmm. So when that CAC Championships does come around in 2 weeks, this year, knowing what you have on your track and field team, you've got a good gauge of it from the meets throughout the year. What do you hope to see out of your athletes? And more or less, what do you expect to see? What do you expect the results to be in the Capital Athletic Conference Championships?
I think indoors, the conference is as loaded as it's maybe ever been on both the male and the female side. So even though we may be better on the women's side, it may be just as difficult as ever for us just to score more points. I do think we have the capability of scoring more points, but it's just a matter of who performs, on those 2 days. On our men's side, we've got some talent. What we are very much lacking on that men's side is the motivation to come out and do things right day after day. And until we do that, our guys are going to be in for a shock at CACs. They're going to have to step it up.
All right, Coach. Well, best of luck to you in those CACs coming up in 2 weeks. We'll talk to you again next week before you head to the conference championships. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Welcome back into the Bobcast. I'm joined now by head swim coach Justin Anderson. And before we get to even anything that happened this weekend, Justin, let's first talk about the fact that it was senior day. A lot of your seniors, the last time they're going to set foot in competition in this pool here at Bobcat Natatorium, and it had to be a little bit of an emotional day for you to see some of these seniors who are some of the first seniors you recruited be done here at Frostburg.
Yeah, definitely. This is the first group that I've recruited and then coached through 4 years here at Frostburg. They've meant a tremendous amount to this program and have really helped us turn the tide in Frostburg swimming. I mean, if you looked at our records 4 years ago, our men were 2-11, our women were, I think, 4-10. So huge turnaround with this group, with our women finishing the year 12-4 and the men 10-5. And that's a testament to what these seniors have meant to the program and the tone they've set for us moving forward.
What are some of, out of this group, some of the best memories that you have from this group of seniors?
I think just all the progression they've made over the years, the championship meet performances, every meet where they dropped tons and tons of time throughout these years, and seeing them just develop as athletes and people are my favorite memories with them.
In terms of your teams on Saturday, the big storyline was your men getting the win over Marymount, something that has never happened, and it's got to feel good for you and these seniors. There's the progression that you just talked about, getting their first CAC win.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going into the meet at Marymount, when we had done our meet sheet simulations prior, I had our men losing by about a point heading into the meet, and we made some lineup adjustments as the meet got going and had some people step up in really big races for us. Casey Burton, Taylor Wade, and Joe Jenkins going 1, 2, 3 in the 800 free was really big, and Casey getting his first win as a college athlete for us here at Frostburg in his last meet was a really nice way for him to cap things off. Christian stepping up big in the 50 in a race where he wasn't favored to win helped us out a ton, and a lot of our freshmen coming through with some big performances as well.
We're going to get to one of those freshmen in just a second, but you talk about how when you ran the simulation, you had them losing by about a point. It wasn't even close. It was a dominant win, 113.5 to 90.5. That really shows, I think, how much this group has progressed, and maybe a lot better than a lot of people think in this Capital Athletic Conference.
Yeah, I mean, they stepped up really well where they needed to, and even though it's a 25-point spread almost, in swimming that's one race goes the other way, and it can change pretty quick. So I think the team came into it with kind of a chip on their shoulder. They've been selected last in the conference and wanted to show that they're better than that, and they went out and did that.
The women also picking up the win, 104 to 101. A couple good performances on that side as well. Of course, we consistently talk about Macy Nitchie, but Maddie Weinberger was really the focal point on Saturday. Broke 2 school records during the afternoon. She broke the one record in the 100-meter IM and then the 100-meter breaststroke. She looks like she, along with Macy, could be a very good tandem for you coming into the Capital Athletic Conference Championships.
Yeah, Maddie had some huge races for us. Going up against Elizondo in the 100 breaststroke, they were the only 2 breaststrokers in the conference who hadn't lost a breaststroke race this year. So I knew there was a lot of pressure on her for that race, and we knew heading into that last relay that she needed to win that event for us to take the meet. So really huge, her coming up and not just winning, but winning by a couple seconds there and breaking her own team record by almost a full second. And then in the 100 IM was another race she actually wasn't favored to win. Alston, who she swam against, was a full second faster than her heading into the meet. So for her to come back, she had a great back half of the IM and pulled ahead of Alston for that win. Those 2 races were crucial for us to pull out the win on the women's side, and she'll definitely be a big force for us at championships, and has the potential to come away with 3 CAC titles.
Outside of Nitchie and Weinberger, the other standout on Saturday for the women was Becca Marsh, and she pulled in a couple of second-place finishes, but she did it in the distance events that over that stretch it takes a lot out of you to be able to come away with good times in that, and she seems like being paired with Nitchie and Weinberger. The 3 of them are going to be a force to be reckoned with when it comes to the championships.
Yeah, Becca's been looking really great in her distance events recently, especially this past weekend. She had back-to-back days where she swam really well in both the 5 and the 1,000, or the 4 and the 8 for us here in meters. And I'm excited to see what she's going to do at Champs. She's been training really well. She's been feeling better in practice. I think she should have a great meet. We had, though, across the board, people just step up all over the place. Taylor Stanbeck had an incredible butterfly race, dropping almost 3 seconds from her season best so far. Elizabeth Myers had a phenomenal 50, taking a second place that we weren't anticipating. All of our relays came up really big and scored points where they needed to. Maria Rousseau dropped 3 seconds from her season best in her backstroke to score some extra points for us. So, I mean, there were over a dozen different places you could look and say that's what turned the meet, because with a 3-point gap, that's 1.5 points go the other way and we lose instead of win.
From all of those names, you throw in also Emily Turner. She had a second place finish in the 100-meter backstroke. Lauren Petty, John Robbins, Sam Will, whoever you want to name. What is the fact that you can rattle off all those names and be confident about in all of those girls? What does it say about the depth of your women's team this season?
It's much stronger than it's ever been, which is really exciting. And it also just speaks to, we went over what we needed to do this weekend and where we were going to have our close races, that these girls are ready to step up and do what it takes when the time comes.
Now we let's talk about some of the individual stuff on the men's side, and the first name that needs to be thrown out is Luke Holloway, one of your first years, who's been absolutely phenomenal this season, and he broke a school record this year too, a school record that's been held for 34 years in the 200-meter freestyle, going just over 2 minutes. He has 3 years left here after this season, and it seems like he may give some of the guys who have held records since they've been here, like Christian, a run for their money by the time he's done.
Yeah, definitely. Luke reminds me a lot of Macy, her freshman year. I mean, she came in as a 217, 2 freestyler, which is, somewhere at like 30th in the conference, and now she's a 152, dropping close to 30 seconds in that race. And Luke had similar progression this year, came in just under 2 minutes and was down to 146, so almost a 14-second drop in November. Has huge potential, very athletic, great trainer, great attitude day in and day out in the pool. I wouldn't be surprised to see him rewrite all the freestyle records by the time he's done here.
And of course, we can't give enough acclaim to what Christian has done in his time here now that he's a senior too. But I want to talk about something else with another one of your first years. Anthony Giuseppetti has been phenomenal this season as well. And there was a little bit of a quirk in the meet this week where he actually came away with a tie. And talking to some of the officials, they said they maybe see one of those a year. Is that something that is really that uncommon? And is it something that you've ever come across where it is actually a dead tie and it can't be separated?
Yeah, I mean, ties are pretty rare. Typically, you see them at bigger meets where there's more people swimming than just 6 in the pool at a time. So I'd say at our conference championship meet, we'll probably see at least one tie. The nice thing about dual meets is a tie is a tie. They don't go the tiebreaker route, but what you'll see at the championship level is they do have tiebreakers or swim-offs for spots, especially when it determines who's in the top 8 or the top 16. So I've actually seen before where they've had people tie in the 500, they do a swim-off, and they tied again and had to do a third 500 that day, which is really just killer. So it is pretty rare. But in the 6-pool format, we just split the points, which is nice. And Anthony came up really big in all of his races this weekend, had almost right on lifetime bests in his 200 backstroke at Elizabethtown, and his hundreds were really solid both days as well.
Two other winners for you this weekend. Casey Burton, he picked up a first place in the 800-meter freestyle, and also Sawyer Conklin picking up a first place in the 400-meter freestyle. Same thing as the women. When you go down the list, it seems like you can throw any of these guys out there, be extremely confident with them, and extremely confident that when it comes to the Capital Athletic Conference, they're going to be able to pick up a lot of points for you in the championships.
Yeah, our men should be really strong this year, and we have men that are willing to swim events that are going to maximize our scoring potential at the team. So it's going to be nice to go into champs knowing we have the opportunity to make a run and hopefully beat Marymount again there. Casey's made huge progression in his 3 years with us. He did not know how to swim when he joined our team, could swim 10 feet, and that was it. So for him to come out his last meet of his swimming career and win the 1,000 freestyle, which is the longest event we have, or the 800 free here in meters, just speaks to how much hard work and dedication he's put in and that it's paid off.
Now, you have a couple weeks off until the Capital Athletic Conference Championships. The conference championships are scheduled for the 22nd, the 23rd, 24th, and 25th of February. So you get about a 3-week span where you don't have any actual competition. As a coach, what do you do with your team to A, make sure they stay in prime shape for the Capital Athletic Conference Championships, and make sure in that 3-week span their heads don't get out of it a little bit, they don't get a little relaxed, and they stay ready for the CACs?
Yeah, we're entering our taper phase here about 17 days out. So we are going to start doing less yardage, resting a little bit more, but we're still going to be racing almost every day in practice where we're pushing the intensity and the speed, even though it might be on much more rest than they're used to throughout the year. And that helps keep them in that mindset of getting up and being ready to go when the time does come at championships. And then throughout this phase two, we do a lot of visualization work where we listen to an audio visualization recording, and they're going to really think about their races and what they need to do when they get up there, so when the time comes, they're just ready.
Is there a span over this 3 weeks in between now and the CACs where maybe you say, all right, let's take a little bit of a break, let's not go as hard, let's give your body some time to rest and recover before you have to put them back into the gauntlet at the championships?
I mean, that's pretty much what this whole 2.5 week taper phase is it's letting their bodies rest and recover more than we've done all season. Similar to what we did right before the Franklin Marshall Invite, except they only got 1 week of rest and recovery there. This is going to be drawn out over 3 weeks so that they are ready and geared up to go when we get there.
All right, Justin, well, best of luck to you and your teams at the Capital Athletic Conference Championships, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thanks a lot.
I'm joined now on the Bobcast by women's head basketball coach Carrie Saunders. Coach, a 1-1 split for your team this week. First at Penn State Harrisburg, then on the road at Salisbury. And let's start with that game at Penn State Harrisburg. It was an all-around good showing. Your team puts up 80 points, holds Penn State Harrisburg to 68. Victoria Diggs leading the way, 27 points for her on the night, but you have 4 scorers in double figures. It was a well-balanced game, and top to bottom, you have to be happy with the performance.
Yeah, it was a well-balanced game. You're always in for a fight when you go to Penn State Harrisburg, and it was a battle down to the very end. And I was very, very happy with the way that our girls finished down the stretch. And having 4 people in double-digit, scoring is obviously something that you want and like to see. Makes us a little bit more well-balanced.
Then the other game this week was the game down at Salisbury, a little bit of a rougher showing. Your team held to 40 points, 46 points on the offensive side. What did Salisbury do defensively that really your girls struggled against in terms of scoring?
Yeah, I mean, they contained us defensively, and we had trouble making contact and getting some calls, and that was a big thing that we kind of struggled with, was getting to the free throw line. And I think that was a big deciding factor in the game, was that their physicality and our physicality weren't quite matched, which resulted in us not getting to the free throw line. So, yeah, I mean, they played a really good defensive game and contained us and got us out of our rhythm offensively. But we've got to be able to still get the ball in the basket and get to the free throw line and get those easy points, so to speak, when the ball's not falling for us.
Now, this game on Saturday, I talked about this with Webb Hatch earlier as well, and this was this 3-game road trip in conference, your longest road trip within the Capital Athletic Conference this season. You had 3 home games in a row, then three road games in a row, going back to St. Mary's 2 Saturdays ago. As a coach, what are the difficulties that go along with such a long road trip? And it's a couple long trips as well, especially the overnight one to Salisbury. You have to go all the way down to St. Mary's. These aren't easy road trips, and to have 3 of them in a row, it's got to be a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah, so, unfortunately the way the schedule fell is we were home during the break, and then as soon as our girls got back into class, we were on the road. So, as a coach and as a student athlete, that's never the best situation, but they're uncontrollable situations. And yeah, having 2 back-to-back overnight weekends and then split that down the middle with the away game at Harrisburg, it was a tough week for us. But that's part of it. You've got to be able to go on the road and be able to execute and be able to play. And I was happy with what we did on Wednesday, and unfortunately we fell a little short on Saturday. But it's part of it, and it's tough, especially getting back into the flow of classes. But we bounce back here with a home game. So.
And you do get that home game coming up this week against Mary Washington. Of course, there's only 4 games left in the regular conference slate. You get Mary Washington at home, and then you get 2 more on the road with Marymount and Southern Virginia before your final home game of the season against Wesley. the conference has really started to shape up now with just the 4 games left, and your team currently sitting 6-8 in the Capital Athletic Conference, sitting in that 6th spot, 1 spot above that red line.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there's a little bit of a disparity this season between the top and the bottom of the conference, especially when you look at the Newports and the Marymounts in this conference. But sitting in that 6th spot, knowing with those 4 games and those 4 opponents that you have left, realistically, what do you believe that your team has to do to get into the conference tournament? Right now, you do hold your own destiny.
Yeah, we've got to control what we can control, and we have to take it one game at a time. We can't look ahead to any game. So right now we have Mary Wash coming to us. We lost by about 10 on the road. So that's a winnable game for us. We've got to get prepared and ready to defend our home court. And we talk about that a lot, throughout the season is when teams travel to us, we have to take care of business for those games. So we got to take it one game at a time, and we do. The ball's in our court. So we've got to be able to win those games that we need to win in order to make a run for playoffs. With
that 6-8 record and that 6th place spot at this current moment, I'm sure you would like to have a few more conference wins under your belt. But going into the final 4 games, are you okay with where your team is currently standing?
Yes. The last 3 weeks have been a wild ride for our program. We've had a lot of injuries, and the flu has gone through our team like crazy. So we haven't had our full roster since January 17th. So we're hoping that we're going to get a full roster here for Wednesday. So yeah, I mean, with what we faced the last 3 weeks, I'm proud of the fight that we show every single night, no matter, what girls we have suited up and ready. So yeah, I mean, obviously, there were some games in there that I think could have gone another way. But we've got 4 left that we can get, so that's what we have to focus on. Of
course, you've had Victoria Diggs back for a few games now. She did have 27 against Penn State Harrisburg, but the other guard that's really stepped up so far is Kayla Wilson. Later on in this season, she's really pushed herself into more minutes, and going into these final 4 games, could we potentially see her have more of a prominent role, more of a leadership role on this squad with only 4 games left? Yeah, I mean, with the injuries and the illnesses that we've had, Kayla has taken this opportunity and absolutely ran with it, which is what I wanted to see. I wanted to see people step up and then continue to step up even when we get some of those returners and those starters back from illnesses and injuries. And she's maintained that, and that's what's been allowing her to get those minutes and be kind of that person that has picked up, has been able to even out the discrepancy in scoring when we had some of our leading scorers out. So yeah, I'm really impressed with her and happy with her minutes and her productivity. So hopefully that'll remain for the rest of the season. Now to the 2 games coming up this week, and you already mentioned first one is Mary Washington here at Bobcat Arena on Wednesday night. A Mary Washington team that when you went down to Fredericksburg got the better of you 63-53. Mm-hmm. Looking at this game, they're coming into your gym. What do you have to change from game 1 to game 2 to come away with what is almost a must-needed win for your team? Yeah, we just have to play a complete game. That's the biggest thing sometimes where we struggle is consistently playing all the way from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. And if we do that, then we'll be able to compete and come out with a win. But we've got to be able to play consistent for the entire stretch of the game. No matter if they go on a run, we go on a run, no matter what the score is, like we have to remain structured and within what we do within our program, and we should be fine. The other game this week is you have to go down to Arlington, Virginia on Saturday and take on a Marymount team that has kind of taken the conference by storm in a way this season. Everybody expected Christopher Newport to be towards the top. This Marymount team just as good, 13-1 so far this season. They got the better of you at home here at Bobcat Arena the first time around, and your team, the big note that game was your team struggled to score, just 32 points offensively that day. What do you have to do to put more points up on the board? And the big news there was Victoria Diggs was held scoreless in that game against Marymount. What do you have to do to get her more involved, get her more looks? Because Marymount was clearly denying her the basketball in that first meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we're a completely different team, though, as well. That was right at the beginning of the new year, and we've got a month, between that game and this game coming up. So we just got to continue to play our game. If they try and, deny Diggs, Kayla is now come to life, where we weren't getting those minutes out of her during that time where we first played them. So we have a little bit more threat from the guard position, and our front court has been playing much, much better, and giving us good solid minutes and points from that. So, we're a different team, but again, we have to control what we can control, and whatever they throw at us, we have to be able to take and still be able to play. And I think that if we do that, we'll be all right.
Well, 2 big games coming up this week. Mary Washington at home on Wednesday. That'll be a 6 o'clock start for the women. Marymount on the road on Saturday. That'll be a 1 o'clock start for the women down in Arlington, Virginia. Coach, thanks for joining us, and best of luck to you in these 2 games, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Thank you very much.